Bobok from Somebody's Diary by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Semyon Ardalyonovitch said to me all of a sudden the day before yesterday, "Why, will you ever be sober, Ivan Ivanovitch? Tell me that, pray." A strange requirement. I did not resent it. I am a timid man, but here they have actually made me out mad. An artist painted my portrait, as it happened. "After all, you are a literary man," he said. I submitted. He exhibited it. I read, "Go and look at the morbid face suggested. Go look at the morbid face, suggesting insanity." It may be so, but think of putting it so bluntly into print. In print, everything ought to be decorous, and there ought to be ideals, while instead of that, say it indirectly, at least. That's what you have style for. But no, he doesn't care to do it indirectly. Nowadays, humor and a fine style have disappeared, and abuse is accepted as wit. I do not resent it, but God knows I am not enough of a literary man to go out of my mind. I have written a novel. It has not been published. I have written articles. They have been refused. Those articles I took about from one editor to another. Everywhere they refused them. "You have no salt," they told me. "What sort of salt do you want?" I asked, with a jeer. "Attic salt?" They did not even understand. For the most part, I translate from the French for the booksellers. I write advertisement for shopkeepers, too. "Unique opportunity! Fine tea from our own plantations." I made a nice sum over a panegyric on His deceased Excellency Pyotr Matrovitch. I compiled the Art of Pleasing the Ladies, a commission from a bookseller. I have brought out some 6 little works of this kind in the course of my life. I am thinking of making a collection of bon mots of Voltaire, but I am afraid it may seem a little flat to our people. Voltaire is no good now. Nowadays they want a cudgel, not Voltaire. We knock each other's teeth out nowadays. Well, so that's the whole extent of my literary activity. Though indeed I do send round letters to the editors gratis, and fully signed. I give them all sorts of counsels and admonitions, criticize and point out the true path. The letter I sent last week to the editor's office was the 40th I had sent in the last 2 years. I have wasted 4 rubles over stamps alone for them. My temper is at the bottom of it all. I believe that the artist who painted me did so not for the sake of literature, but for the sake of 2 symmetrical warts on my forehead. A natural phenomenon, he would say. They have no ideas, so now they are out for phenomenon. And he didn't succeed in getting my warts in his portrait. To the life, that's what they call realism. And as to madness, a great many people were put down as mad among us last year, and in such language, with such original talent, and yet, after all, it appears. However, one ought to have foreseen it long ago. That is rather awful, so that from the point of view of pure art, one may really commend it. Well, but after all, these so-called madmen have turned out cleverer than ever. So it seems the critics can call them mad, but they cannot produce anyone better. The wittiest of all, in my opinion, is he who can, if only once a month, call himself a fool, a faculty unheard of nowadays. In old days, once a year at any rate, a fool would recognize that he was a fool, but nowadays not a bit of it. And they have so muddled things up that there is no telling a fool from a wise man. They have done that on purpose. I remember a witty Spaniard saying when, 250 years ago, the French built their first madhouse, "They have shut up all their fools in a house apart to make sure that they are wise men themselves." Just so. You don't show your own wisdom by shutting someone else in a madhouse. "K has gone out of his mind" means that we are sane now. No, it doesn't mean that yet. Hang it though, why am I meandering on? I go on grumbling and grumbling. Even my maidservant is sick of me. Yesterday a friend came to see me. "Your style is changing," he said. "It is choppy. You chop, and then a parenthesis, and then a parenthesis. In the parenthesis, then you stick in something else in brackets. Then you begin chopping and chopping again." The friend is right. Something strange is happening to me. My character is changing, and my head aches. I am beginning to see and hear strange things, not voices exactly, but though someone beside me were muttering, Bobak, Bobak, Bobak. What is the meaning of this Bobak? I must divert my mind. I went out in search of a diversion. I hit upon a funeral. A distant relation, a collegiate counselor, however, a widow and 5 daughters, all marriageable young ladies. What it must come to even to keep them in slippers. Their father managed it, but now there is only a little pension. They will have to eat humble pie. They have always received me ungraciously, and indeed I should not have gone to the funeral now that it had not been for a peculiar circumstance. I followed the procession to the cemetery with the rest. They were stuck up and held aloof from me. My uniform was certainly rather shabby. It's 25 years, I believe, since I was at the cemetery. What a wretched place. To begin with, the smell. There were 15 hearses with palls varying in expensiveness. There were 2 krafkeeks. One was a general and one some ladies. There were many mourners, a great deal of feigned mourning, and a great deal of open gaiety. The clergy have nothing to complain of. It brings them a good income. But the smell, the smell. I should not like to be one of the clergy here. I kept glancing at the faces of the dead cautiously, distrusting my impressionability. Some had a mild expression, some looked unpleasant. As a rule, the smiles were disagreeable, and in some cases very much so. I don't like them. They haunt one's dreams. During the service I went out to the church into the air. It was a grey day, but dry. It was cold, too, but then it was October. I walked about among the tombs. They are of different grades. The 3rd grade costs 30 rubles. It's decent, not so very dear. The first 2 grades are tombs in the church and under the porch. They cost a pretty penny. On this occasion they were burying in tombs of the 3rd grade 6 persons, among them the general and the lady. I looked into the graves, and it was horrible. Water and such water, absolutely green but there, why talk of it? The gravedigger was bailing it out every minute. I went out while the service was going on, and strolled outside the gates. Close by was an almshouse, and a little further off there was a restaurant. It was not a bad little restaurant. There was lunch and everything. There were lots of mourners here. I noticed a great deal of gaiety and genuine heartiness. I had something to eat and drink. Then I took part in the bearing of the coffin from the church to the grave. Why is it that corpses in the coffins are so heavy? They say it is due to some sort of inertia, that the body is no longer directed by its owner, or some nonsense of that sort, in opposition to the laws of mechanics and common sense. I don't like to hear people who have nothing but a general education venture to solve the problems that require special knowledge. And with us, that's done continually. Civilians love to pass opinions about subjects that are the province of the soldier, and even of the field marshal, while men who have been educated as engineers prefer discussing philosophy and political economy. I did not go to the requiem service. I have some pride, and if I am only received owing to some special necessity, why force myself on their dinners, even if it be a funeral dinner? The only thing I don't understand is why I stayed at the cemetery. I stayed on the tombstone and sank into the appropriate reflections. I began with the Moscow exhibition and ended with the reflections upon astonishment in the abstract. My deductions about astonishment were these. To be surprised at everything is stupid, of course, and to be astonished at nothing is a great deal more becoming, and for some reason accepted as good form. But that is not really true. To my mind, to be astonished at nothing is much more stupid than to be astonished at everything. And moreover, to be astonished at nothing is almost the same as feeling respect for nothing. And indeed, a stupid man is incapable of feeling respect. But what I desire most of all is to feel respect. I thirst to feel respect. One of my acquaintances said to me the other day, "He thirsts to feel respect." Goodness, I thought, what would happen to you if you dared to print that nowadays? At that point I sank into forgetfulness. I don't like reading the epitaphs of tombstones. They are everlastingly the same. An unfinished sandwich was lying on the tombstone near me, stupid and inappropriate. I threw it on the ground, as it was not bread, but only a sandwich. Though I believe it is not a sin to throw bread on the earth, but only on the floor, I must look it up in Souverin's calendar. I suppose I sat there a long time. Too long a time, in fact. I must have lain down on a long stone which was the shape of a marble coffin. And how it happened I don't know, but I began to hear things of all sorts being said. At first I did not pay attention to it, but treated it with contempt. But the conversation went on. I heard muffled sounds as though the speakers' mouths were covered with a pillow, and at the same time they were distinct and very near. I came to myself, sat up, and began listening attentively. Your Excellency, it is utterly impossible. You led hearts. I returned your lead, and here you played the 7 of diamonds. You ought to have given me a hint about diamonds. What? Play hard and fast, wrote by the rules? Where's the charm of that? You must, Your Excellency. One can do anything without something to go upon. We must play with dummy. Let one hand not be turned up. Well, you won't find a dummy here. What conceited words! And it was queer and unexpected. One was such a ponderous, dignified voice, the other softly suave. I could not have believed it if I had not heard it myself. I had not been to the Requiem dinner, I believe, and yet how could they be playing preference here and with what general was this? That the sounds came from under the tombstone of that there could be no doubt. I bent down and read on the tomb. Here lies the body of Major General Provkoch, a cavalier of such and such orders. Passed away in August of this year 57. Rest, beloved ashes, till the joyful dawn. Dash it! It really is a general. There was no monument on the grave from which the obsequious voice came. There was only a tombstone. He must have been a fresh arrival. From his voice, he was a lower court councillor. Oh ho ho! I heard in a new voice, a dozen yards from the general's resting place, coming from a quite fresh grave. This voice belonged to a man and a plebeian, mawkish with its affectations of religious fervor. Oh ho ho ho! Oh, here he is hiccuping again, cried the haughty and disdainful voice of an irritated lady, apparently of the highest society. Is an affliction to be by the shopkeeper. I don't hiccup. Why, I've had nothing to eat. It's simply my nature. Really, madame, you don't seem to be able to get rid of your caprices here. Then why don't you come and lie down here? They put me here, my wife and my little children put me here. I did not lie down here of myself. The mystery of death, and I would not have lain down beside you not for any money. I lie here as befitting my fortune, judge by the price, for we can always do that. Pay for a tomb of the 3rd grade. You made money, I suppose. You fleeced people? Fleece you, indeed. We haven't seen the color of your money since January. There's a little bill against you at the shop. Well, that's really stupid to try and recover debts here is too stupid to my thinking. Go to the surface. Ask my niece. She is my heiress. There's no asking anyone now, and no going anywhere. We have both reached our limit, and before judgment seat of God, are equal in our sins. In our sins, the lady mimicked him contemptuously. Don't dare speak to me. Oh ho ho! You see, shopkeepers obey the lady, Your Excellency. Why shouldn't he? Why, Your Excellency, because, as we all know, things are different here. Different how? We are dead, so to speak, Your Excellency. Oh, yes, but still. Well, this is an entertainment. It is a fine show, I must say. If it had come to this down here, what can one expect on the surface? But what a queer business. I went on listening, however, though with extreme indignation. Yes, I should like a taste of life. Yes, I should like a taste of life, I heard a new voice suddenly somewhere in the space between the general and the irritable lady. Do you hear, Your Excellency? Our friend is at the same game again. For 3 days at a time he says nothing, and then he bursts out with, I should like a taste of life. Yes, a taste of life. And with such an appetite, he. And such frivolity. It gets hold of him, Your Excellency, and do you know, he is growing sleepy, quite sleepy. He has been here since April. Then, all of a sudden, I should like a taste of life." "It is rather dull, though," observed His Excellency. "It is, Your Excellency. Shall we tease Avdotya Ignatyevna again? He. No, spare me, please. I can't endure that quarrelsome virago." "And I can't endure either of you," cried the virago disdainfully. "You are both of you bores, and can't tell me anything ideal. I know one little story about you, Your Excellency. Don't turn up your nose, please. How a manservant swept you out from under a married couple's bed one morning." "Nasty woman," the general muttered through his teeth. "Avdotya Ignatyevna, madam," the shopkeeper wailed suddenly again. "My dear lady, don't be angry, but tell me, am I going through the ordeal by torment now, or is this something else?" "Ah, he is at it again, as I expected, for there is a smell from him which means he is turning round." "I am not turning round, madam, and there's no particular smell for me, for I've kept my body whole, as it should be, while you're regularly high, for the smell is really horrible, even for a place like this. I don't speak of it merely from politeness." "Ah, you horrid, insulting wretch! He positively stinks, and he talks about me." "Oh, if only the time for my requiem would come quickly, I should hear their tearful voices over my head, my wife's lament, and my children's soft weeping." "Well, that's a thing to fret for. They'll stuff themselves with funeral rice and go home. Oh, I wish somebody would wake up." "Avdotya Ignatyevna," said the insinuating government clerk, "wait a bit. The new arrivals will speak." And are there any young people among them?" "Yes, there are, Avdotya Ignatyevna. There are some not more than lads." "Oh, how welcome that would be." "Haven't they begun yet?" inquired His Excellency. "Even those who came the day before yesterday haven't awakened yet, Your Excellency. As you know, they sometimes don't speak for a week. It's a good job that today and yesterday and the day before they brought a whole lot. As it is, they are all last year's for 70 feet around." "Yes, it will be interesting." "Yes, Your Excellency. They buried Tarasovich, the Privy Council, today. I knew it from the voices. I know his nephew. He helped to lower the coffin just now." Where is he, then?" 5 steps from you, Your Excellency, on the left, almost at your feet. You should make his acquaintance, Your Excellency." No, it's not for me to make advances." "Oh, he will begin of himself, Your Excellency. He will be flattered. Leave it to me, Your Excellency, and I—" "Oh, me! Oh, what is happening to me?" croaked the frightened voice of a new arrival. "A new arrival, Your Excellency, a new arrival, thank God. And how quick he's been. Sometimes they don't say a word for a week." "Oh, I believe it's a young man," Avdotya Ignatyevna cried shrilly. It was a complication, and so sudden," faltered the young man again. "Only the evening before, Schultz said to me, 'There's a complication,' and I died suddenly before morning. Oh! "Well, there's no help for it, young man," the general observed graciously, evidently pleased at a new arrival. "You must be comforted. You are kindly welcome to our Vale of Jehoshaphat, so to call it. We are kind-hearted people. You will come to know us and appreciate us. Major General Vasily Vasilevich Petrovich, at your service." "Oh, no, certainly not. I was at Schultz. I had a complication, you know. At first it was my chest and a cough, and then I caught a cold, my lungs, and influenza, and all of a sudden, quite unexpectedly— the worst of all was it being so unexpected." "You say it began with the chest," said the government clerk, put in suavely, as though he had wished to reassure the new arrival. "Yes, my chest and cataract, and there is no cataract. But still, the chest, I couldn't breathe, and you know—" I know, but if it was the chest, you ought to have gone to Eek and not to Schultz." "You know, I kept meaning to go to Botkin's, and all at once—" "Botkin is quite prohibitive," observed the general. "Oh, no, he's not forbidden at all. I've heard he is so attentive and foretells everything beforehand." "His Excellency was referring to his fees," the government clerk corrected him. "Oh, not at all. He asks only 3 rubles, and he makes such an examination and gives you a prescription. And I was very anxious to see him, for I've been told— Well, gentlemen, had I better go to Eek or to Botkin?" "What? To whom?" The general's corpse shook with agreeable laughter. The government clerk echoed it in falsetto. "Dear boy, dear Delightful boy. How I love you! Avadota Ignatiev squealed ecstatically. I wish they'd put someone like you next to me. No, that was too much, and these were the dead of our times. Still, I ought to listen more, and not to be in too great a hurry to draw conclusions. That snivelling new arrival, I remember him just now in his coffin, had the expression of a frightened chicken, the most revolting expression in the world. However, let us wait and see.